Welcome back to the Badass Literature Society, where badasses come together to rate and review novels recommended by you. Our podcast we publish monthly, at least that's our goal for now, and we'll focus on one book. We'll split the podcast into two sections. First, a spoiler-free description and our overall score, and then a more in-depth discussion of the plot and the ending, which will obviously be spoiler-heavy, and our individual scores for the book.
I just wanted to give a shout-out to Bethany from Prince Kai Fan Pod. I had the honor to be a guest star on her podcast. You should check it out if you're a fan of The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Mayer. I was on episode 46, so you should listen to the whole thing, but especially my episode. Boop, boop.
You guys have forgotten, this week we are talking about Magic for Liars, which is by Sarah Gailey. First, we're going to talk a little bit about Sarah. So Gailey has written two alternate history novellas other than Magic for Liars called River of Teeth and Taste of Morrow. In 2018, she won they won the Hugo Award for Best Fan Writer. Sarah Gailey goes by they, them pronouns and is non-binary, so I apologize for using the wrong pronoun there. Magic for Liars is their first full-length novel. They have been nominated for the 2017 Nebula Award and the 2018 Hugo and Locus Award, and they are regular contributors for multiple writing and literature websites. Now, Lauren, if you want to cover the back of the book.
Yes, so brief synopsis back cover. Ivy Gamble has never wanted to be magic. She's perfectly happy with her life. She has an almost sustainable career as a private investigator and an empty apartment and a slight drinking problem. It's a great life, and she doesn't wish she was like her estranged sister, the magically gifted Professor Tabitha. But when Ivy is hired to investigate the gruesome murder of a faculty member at Tabitha's private academy, the stalwart detective starts to lose herself in the case, the life she could have had, and the answer to the mystery that seems just out of her reach.
Dun, dun, dun. All right, Barbara, what accolades or awards has this book won?
Okay, so the book has made it into a lot of book lists that I've noticed, like a ton of them. And some of them include the Goodreads The Hottest Books of Summer of 2019 and the 24 Most Popular Sci-Fi and Fantasy Novels of 2019. EW's Books to Read in June, all of this obviously was back in 2019, and BuzzFeed's 29 Summer Books to Get Excited About. It has a 3.7 out of 5 on Goodreads and a 3.9 out of 5 on Barnes & Nobles. It was published on June 4th of 2019. It was also nominated for Goodreads Choice Awards for Fantasy in 2019. It is 336 pages and considered a fantasy or mystery genre.
Okay, so first things first, let's talk about it. What did you guys think about Magic for Liars?
Remember, no spoilers. I forgot that.
Thanks for tacking it on.
Sure. Michael, do you want to?
No, you can go first, Barbara.
Me? So I don't want to spoil anything. So I did enjoy the book, but I was a little disappointed with the lackluster magic in it. I don't think that's spoiler. I just thought a book being called Magic for Liars and being set in where it's set, which is a high school, pretty much a Hogwarts, essentially.
It's not Hogwarts.
No, nothing at all considered like Hogwarts, but Americanized. So it's a high school for, what do they call them here? They don't call them wizards or...
Mages, I think.
Just, is it mages?
I think so.
Yeah, so it's, high school for them. So I was a little disappointed that it wasn't as heavy magical as I wanted it to be. I did enjoy how very descriptive they used for the magic, though. Whenever the magic was introduced or took a center part of the book, it was very descriptive and really, really cool. I've never read a book that described magic the way that they did in this book. So I enjoyed that. I did enjoy, though, how the teenagers still acted like teenagers. Like, they used magic to draw penis clouds because they can. Like, why not? Like, that's such a teenager thing, Think back how stupid we were when we did crap like that. Like, I thought that was really... They made them act like teenagers in the book, so I enjoyed that. I thought it was kind of a Mean Girl vibe to it a little at times as well. I was not a huge fan of the main character. I thought she was super whiny and just over the top, and I'm okay with having books that have unlikable characters and even unlikable main characters where you're not necessarily supposed to like love everything about them, but I just felt like this one was a bit over the top. She
by over the top she means awful.
Well, she was just, it's one thing to say like like in the beginning she says like, oh, I wish I was magical. Obviously it's not giving anything away because the book literally says she's not magical, her sister is. So Ivy is the main character's name. And she just goes on and on about, like, if she were magical, then she would do this. Or if she were magical, then she would do this. And it's like, once in a while, that's fine, I get it. But every single time you're always complaining about that, it gets a little stale. And it's just like, you're not, like, she was around her late 30s, I believe, was... I think how old she was supposed to be. I think
something like that,
and at some points I feel like she was acting like a teenager herself. Like, you don't always have to be, like, we get it. You wish you were magical. I understand. But, there's no need to keep pointing it out.
I 100% agree about the main character. She was just, she's very self-deprecating. Everything about her was she was very whiny. And just, like Barbara said, if it had been, like, it's like, oh yeah, I really wish I could have done magic like my sister, and then you had that as like even like a whole chapter about that. That would have been fine. But it's not just one chapter. It's over and over and over about how like, oh, my life would be so much better if only I could do magic. And it's like, Ivy, my life would probably be better if I could do magic, but I don't wander around talking about that.
To put it in perspective, though, This would be comparable to, like, Filch from the Harry Potter series writing a novel.
Being a squib.
Being a squib and, like, being constantly surrounded by people that are way cooler than you would kind of suck, in a sense.
True.
And
right,
it would be pretty, it'd be like you're the only one that can't do all of the things. I don't know. I get that, but I think that she was whinier than is necessary, but I also understand why she was feeling the way that she was, I think. I think I'd probably feel the same way. Now, would I whine and bitch about it as much as she did? Probably not, but...
And I guess that's kind of where I'm at. Like, the whole book, like, I didn't love the book. I didn't hate the book, but I didn't love the book either. It was fine. The main character was fine.
The girl's fine, Michael.
It was okay. I liked some of the characters. Like Barbara said, I wish there had been more magic in the book. There isn't a whole lot of it. I mean, it's a magical setting. It would be like if you set a Sherlock Holmes mystery, and the backdrop of it was Hogwarts. I mean, then it was more about the mystery and solving the mystery than it was about the magic. Now, saying that, the magic that the author came up with for this was really cool, and I'm sure we'll get into some of that in the spoiler section. But the way that they created the magic, it's hard to do. I apologize, but it was really a really neat magic system. One other thing that I thought was, I guess, kind of weird is that this is, and it's labeled as an adult book. And if you were to go to Barnes & Noble, it would be in the adult section. And I thought that the book read like a young adult book.
Yeah, without all the F words.
But with, like, F words thrown in. Yeah, I mean, if you pulled, like, the F words out, then this would have been a young adult book.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I liked the book. It was an easy read, so I liked that. Like, I read it in a day and a half. Quarantine 2020. I mean, I found it engaging in the sense that I wanted to continue reading to find out what would happen, even though some of the characters lacked depth. Mm-hmm. I liked the way the mystery was written. Like, I liked they gave just enough details, like, at the right times to keep you kind of strung along, but not, and it was just, like, the organization was good. It's easy to put down a mystery book if it's not paced right, and so I think that this one was well paced. The author also used a lot of imagery and like metaphors and similes that were, I mean, maybe a few too many for some people's taste, but I wrote down several phrases that were just super descriptive that I thought were really good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Things that, I mean, I have them written down somewhere else, and when we get to like the more in-depth second half of the podcast, I'll probably go over those just for spoilers' sake, but it was really good. The things that I didn't like as much, the world building, I was really hoping, since it was like a magical premise, that there would be more world building of like the magical world type of thing, but it really seemed like they didn't solidify the magical or non-magical world for me. Like, they didn't really build a world for Ivy in the regular world or like the magical world very well. So that was disappointing. They kept bashing Harry Potter, which pissed me off.
Ew, same. In that beginning, when it was really like obvious that they were doing that, I was like, oh, I was so offended. Oh, you don't touch my baby.
No.
I guess I didn't notice the Harry Potter bashing.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
They said, like, they came in on the first or second and said something about how this isn't going to be about like Hogwarts, blah blah blah.
Yeah. There's some shade.
I am gonna argue a little bit about one of your comments though, that because I know I'm the odd one out here, because Lauren, I know you finished the book in a day and a half, and Barbara, I know you also finished the book really quickly.
Like in a weekend, yeah.
And you both said that it was one of those things where you enjoyed it and just wanted to keep going. I was exactly the opposite, and it may just be that I didn't enjoy this book, and but I struggled like it.
I know, I had to tell you multiple times.
You know, I don't like books where I feel like it's like work to read them. Like, it's like, you know, you're sitting there and it's like wondering, oh, what should I do this afternoon? And like, you should be like, oh, I just want to keep reading my book. But it's like, oh, do I have to read that? Like, that's kind of how I felt about this one. Now, I should say, until I got to like the last third of the book, I read the last third of the book very quickly. But the rest of it was kind of a struggle for me. But that's just, you know, difference of opinion. Any other major things you guys want to talk about in this section before we talk about whether we'd recommend it?
No, because I think the rest of what I want to discuss might be considered spoilerish.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to look at my notes and what I kind of came up with, but I think that there's just a lot left open-ended, and I didn't care for the ending. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, but just in general, I was disappointed. Like, I got through all of that in like 36 hours, and then I'm like, what, really? And
unsatisfying ending, for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like it left too many things open-ended, and like I said, well, I'll definitely discuss that later on, but there was a lot where I was like, I just want more. For once, like, it's funny, we complain about a really long book, and now I'm complaining that I think this one was too short, personally. I think they could have added a lot more to maybe, not necessarily like have a happy package of like, here's a present, bow tied everything up, but at least something. Like, there was a lot of where I was just like, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? Like, it was just kind of like
there were
random.
A lot of plot lines that just got dropped.
Yeah.
Well, especially for a standalone book, like there's no second book, and so it's just like none of that's ever going to get answered. But overall, I mean, it was a fun, quick read. It's not something that I'll add to my lifetime favorites list, but
yeah,
it wasn't terrible.
So, like always, we're not going to go into our individual numerical ratings here. You have to wait for that. But our group score for this book ended up being a 6.75 out of 10. And I should, say that it was me that brought that score down. I think it would have been a higher score had I not been involved in this episode. But so moving on to the next question, which is, would you recommend this book? I'll start because I know my answer is going to be different than yours probably. And it's the first one that I'm going to say no. I wouldn't recommend this book.
Gasp.
If somebody just came up and said, hey, what are some good books to read? Like, this isn't one that would come to mind. So yeah, my answer is no. I would not recommend this book.
Ooh, I think I still would recommend it. I think I would maybe let the person know going into it that if you're looking for a magical fantasy, I struggle with the fantasy. Like, I really do. It's set in the fantasy world, but I don't think there's enough in the book for it to be considered fantasy. I would put it more of the mystery, personally. 100%, it's more of a mystery book. I like that more. I mean, I like the fantasy aspect. I wanted more of that aspect, but I don't think it was that much to be considered fantasy. So if I were to recommend this book to someone, I would maybe warn them that if you're looking for that type of a fantasy book, I really don't think this one is that. And I would recommend it for someone who really likes it's very inclusive. Like, there are lesbian, like, gay and stuff like that, and it's not even one of those like, ooh, what, there's a lesbian couple, or oh my gosh, they're gay. It's just like a normal random, you don't even like you blink about it, and I love that. I like to see the inclusion because I don't think there's enough of that in normal books, and so I'm all for that. I think that's a great book for people who are looking for that kind of thing, especially I feel like nowadays there are more books like that, and I think it's a good book for that as well. So I think I would recommend it to maybe certain group of friends, maybe not everybody.
Lauren?
I would recommend it as like a fun whodunit beach kind of read, like an easy, like, I don't know. It was recommended to me based on my love of Harry Potter, and I think that is probably why I was disappointed in it, because like I was like, oh, sweet, because the person that recommended it basically said, oh, if you like Harry Potter, like, you'll like this novel. And I'm like, yes, an adult Harry Potter, like, kind of thing. And then it was a big letdown when, like we discussed already, it's really not focused at all on the magical side, really, except for a few things. And so I think that, like Barbara said, I would recommend it in the abstract, just like it's a decent mystery novel that, you know, to my friends that read those type of books, but I wouldn't recommend it to Harry Potter people under the premise that read this book, it's magical, because I don't think it falls in that category.
So recommended with strings attached.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so I think that wraps up the first part of the podcast. For those of you that are leaving us, don't forget to give us a rating if you like us, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle there is @BadassLitPod. We want to hear from you. If you've got a book you want us to read, let us know. I do want to do a quick shout out here for those of you that did interact with our last Instagram post and did give us some books. We're super excited to add those to our episode list, and we're going to be reading some of your books in the not too distant future, so look forward to that. Now for a short preview of our next episode. Next month we're reading a book called I Was a Teenage Ghost Hunter by Brian K. Henry. And I feel like we should announce that the book was provided to us by the author, and you know, we're very grateful for that, and we're enjoying reading it, and excited to do the next episode. Brian, if you're listening, head on over to our Twitter. We're going to have a link to read more about the book, as well as buy it if you'd like to. And now Lauren is going to give us a short preview.
Moody 16-year-old barista Devin Mulray is doing his best to ignore bizarre manifestations at his job in the chilly Northern California town of Arcata. Already teased about his current phase-outs, the last thing he needs is to get pegged as a guy who sees ghosts. It doesn't help his state of mind that local occult fangirl Naira is spreading ghost boy rumors about him online. But when violent paranormal activity badly spooks teens at an abandoned estate, Devin's pushed into investigating by his eccentric friends Clive and Rex. At first reluctant to get involved, Devin's encouraged when Emily, one of the more empathetic girls at Grey Bluff High, is impressed with his daring. Together, the friends explore the creepy Rooston Manor. But as the only person able to perceive the manifestations, Devin soon finds himself going one-on-one against a powerful spirit who attacks the locals and infiltrates Devin's own dreams.
Cool, thank you. I'm excited for this one. I like paranormal stuff, so hopefully it'll be good. Now, remember, the second part of our podcast is an in-depth look at this book. So if you want to read the book, stop listening now and come back and listen to the second half when you're done.
Please come back.
But if you're going to read it, get out of here.
To be clear, the
now,
book
for those of you
now is Magic for Liars.
Yes, the book we are talking about now is Magic for Liars, and we're about to spoil it. So if you want to read it, get out of here.
All the spoilers out of
But for those of you sticking around for the spoilers, here we go. So if you're still here, you're going to have a really bad time because my opening discussion question is, did you predict the ending? So I'm asking, did you guys predict the ending?
Barbara did.
Yeah, I even have my notes here. I have my notes, I have my Kindle. I'm going to show you guys where it, like, at least part of the ending came into focus for me. So I don't know if I want to go. Do you?
While she pulls that up, I'm going to tell you that I did not predict the ending. And I never do predict the ending in these books. And I'd also like to point out that I've read a lot of these books with Barbara over the years. She always predicts the ending of this stuff in books, in movies, TV shows. I would. I would say always. Lauren, did you predict the ending?
I predicted some of it, so, like, and I'll let Barbara kind of give her deal in more depth, but I predicted I was wrong about, like, 2 things, but overall my prediction was close. Not as close as hers, though. She's texting me because I had already read it. She's like, is this what happens? And I'm like, how do I not give away that she just basically predicted the whole rest of the book?
So when I texted Lauren, it was after I had read page 216, if you're following along. And Ivy is talking to Mrs. Webb, who is essentially like this nurse healer.
The school nurse. I mean,
yeah, well, she's a school nurse, but prior, like, she's way overqualified as a school nurse. Like, she's like this badass healer in this society. And I'm gonna, like, digress here real quick, but what I really liked about the magic is how they did the healing magic. Like, it's literally
Barbara, that's the next question.
I'm sorry. Okay, fine. Just kidding. So back to page 216. So Ivy's talking to Mrs. Webb, and Ivy said, I mean, if someone had cancer, could you take it out? And it says, her face went still and cold. You've been talking to Tabitha, have you? What do you mean? I'll tell you what I told her. Not cancer at that stage. Her voice was level, but the table trembled with the force of what I realized must have been a lifetime of frustration at the limitations of healing. Theoretically, a healer can do anything, she said, but realistically, it's just not possible to do that to someone, to take them apart for hours and hold everything alive and find everything in the bone that's wrong, and then to put them back together again. Her mouth twisted as though she were going to spit. It can't be done. It's never been done. There's nothing we could have done. So that right there, coupled with the fact that we couldn't, in Ivy's like documents that she got from the head mistress, there was her missing medical report, and then the biopsy was missing a page as well. So I was like, that's weird. Why would those 2 things be missing? And then after she said that, I was like, Tabitha, after you reading that, Ivy goes, oh, Tabitha was wondering because our mom had cancer, and so she was always wondering if she could heal her. But I was thinking, no, obviously not. It's the other chick had cancer. I forgot her name off the top of my head. Sarah, what is the girl that dies?
Oh man, what was her name? Lauren, do you remember?
Ooh, I'm so bad with names.
Start with an E.
Yeah. So Tabitha's was dating the murdered person, quote unquote murdered, and that's how I came to that. I was like, okay, she obviously had cancer. Tabitha was asking about the cancer and thought, can I heal her? And she let her because she's dying anyways. What's the point? She's dying one way, and if she fails at the surgery healing, then she's going to die that way. So she was all gung-ho for it. And then finding the book, her diary, the author wanted you to think it was the lady that died. This is going to really bother me until I can figure out her name.
I'm trying to look
But instead, it was actually Tabitha's, and I thought that was pretty obvious that it was Tabitha's diary, because she's talking about literally the process of doing the healing in the diary. So that's when I started putting it all together. She gives you little snippets of pieces, and I feel like it's easy enough for you to figure it out from that. That was the huge, like, clue for me, at least, when she talked about that. I automatically was like, why would Tabitha want to heal her mom? She never seemed to really care about that, the way that Ivy was talking about it in the book, and so that's how I came from that conclusion. I never predicted that she had successfully healed her from the cancer. I thought that she tried. Do what?
Sylvia.
Sylvia. It was an S.
Yep.
So I thought that Tabitha accidentally killed Sylvia by attempting to heal her. I never thought in a million years that she actually had successfully cured her, essentially, of the cancer. So that's where I didn't completely predict that part. But I did, at that point, I stopped thinking of it as someone who murdered her and thought it was an accident, in the sense that she was just trying to heal her and it went wrong.
So she was like 99% correct.
No.
Right, she was very close. At that point, when I was reading the whole thing with Mrs. Webb, and like, I totally took the author for face value that, oh yeah, duh, she was like beat up over her mom. She was trying to figure out if there was anything that she could have done.
Same.
Like, especially because she talks to Ivy at some point in the book. I can't remember at what point it was, but she says, like, I never stopped thinking about it, like, because Ivy kind of accused her at one point of not being, I guess, caring about the mom's issues, and she basically had said, no, like, I spent years thinking about what I could have done, like, and so because of all of that stuff, I was like, oh, well, yeah, she's been beating herself up because she's magical but couldn't do anything more about it.
Right.
So
and then she literally said, like, that's why she studies theoretical magic. Like,
yeah.
That's why she went into the field she went into in this magical world.
And it so happened that Sylvia had the cancer and she could prove herself that she could do it.
It wasn't until that they alluded to Sylvia's sickness later in the book. Mm-hmm. Like, they said something along the lines of, you know, Sylvia was already sick by then, or like something kind of subtle that I was like, oh, okay, so she was definitely trying to heal Sylvia. And like Barbara, I thought, you know, she probably just wasn't versed enough to do it properly and ended up just being an accident. So.
Well, no, she was good to go. Remember, she practiced by giving a teenager an abortion.
That was awful.
That was awful. That was one of the loose ends that never got tied up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of just left that out there. Poor, was it
Courtney?
Poor Courtney's story. Just, you know, you find out that she got a magical abortion with no anesthetics.
Sedation. Yeah, no sedation, nothing. Had to witness everything and was super traumatized and scarred from it. But then yet they don't ever wrap that up and conclude like how she was or what she did to eventually like heal from that. Or
that's the part that bothered me too, is how the not parents, but the adults seem to like wave it off like no big deal. It like Tabitha was like, oh yeah, well, it was successful, like I was magical and did all the things, and she was like so proud of herself. And Ivy, this is the one point where I enjoyed more Ivy's character than I did Tabitha, because Ivy was like visibly like disgusted when her sister was like didn't even seem to care that Courtney was like traumatized essentially for the rest of her life, maybe because of what she did. And Ivy was like, I think she even described it, what she the author is very good at descriptive words here, very good. Like, I felt like sick with Ivy when she was like, she was like, oh, my stomach is rolling, like, this is awful, because, like, she noticed that Tabitha did not care that she caused a teenager, essentially, a traumatizing experience, but she was so very proud that she had done it. She was like, I did it, and that's what mattered.
Even when, I feel like, wasn't it reported to Webb about what happened eventually? And even once, like, it was out in the open that she had performed the illegal abortion procedure at the school, like, I feel like there was no repercussion for that.
Mm-mm. No, they kind of just brushed it under the rug and was like, no.
Well, it never came out that it was Tabitha, because nobody ever confirmed or denied who did it. Like,
right, Ivy lied. I guess that's
Ivy
true. Ivy was like, oh, I don't know. And Courtney's like, that's right, I don't remember.
Right.
It's like, okay.
And so that leads into another thing I'm going to talk about, which I think we all probably want to talk about, is the magic in the book. And while I don't think there was enough magic in the book, at least for my taste, the magic that the author created or used was so cool. Like the theoretical magic and the healing especially
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at your other question. I'm sorry, go on.
What other question?
The third question.
Yeah.
I was glancing through the notes and I just saw that and I just couldn't continue. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I couldn't.
So the magic in the book is really cool, especially the healing magic, because essentially in this world, the way that they do healing is they use magic to take you apart and then fix whatever's broken or sick or infected and then put you back together.
Like surgery.
It's
like magical surgery. And I just thought that I think this is, again, another moment where, the author, her descriptive words and her imagery just brought this to life.
They're descriptive words.
They are descriptive words. Just brought this magic to life, and it was really like the scenes talking about like there's the scene where Mrs. Webb heals the main character's Ivy, the main character's, and she had an infection.
Yes.
In
from some. Her shoulder.
Yeah, an infection in her shoulder, and Mrs. Webb just quickly just flips her finger and dismantles Ivy's shoulder and then puts it all back together again. It was really cool the way that they described it. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, 100%. I've never read a book where the magic was I feel like the magic is based off of theories, legit mathematical, what is the word?
Mathematical?
Whatever he said. That the theory, they based it on, if I were to have a surgery on my shoulder, this is what they would do. They would literally cut you open and do that. And it was so fascinating to me. I wanted more of that. So anytime in the book, because we have a one instance, Dylan?
Yeah,
Dylan, gets blown up accidentally by Alexandria. It's super descriptive. It's super descriptive. It's I could physically see it in my mind's eye. This dude just blew up. Little particles of little Dylan is just floating around, and his sister is literally I just pictured her using her mind, moving it with her finger type thing, and things moving in the air, oh, well, here's a piece of lung, let me put it over here, and this is where it goes in here. It was just so cool. I've never read a book like that. Normally with magic, it's something you can't see, you wave your wand and there's a little wisp of red, sparks float out of your wand and then they're magically healed or something like that. Whereas this is it's a process. You don't just snap your finger and the magic happens and you're magically healed, or you magically have a fetus abortionist thing and it's gone. No more baby in your tummy. It's a legit surgery. So I thought that was really cool as well.
Yeah, her, whenever, I just blanked on the character, Tabitha's description, when she's describing how it felt when Mrs. Webb was healing her shoulder, it wasn't, she didn't describe it as being painful, but she described it as being, this super weird experience, which obviously it would be, but just the author did a good job of describing the magic itself, but then also, making you aware of how the character feels, too, and, describing that. I just thought it was pretty cool. I mean, that was one of the drawing in elements for me in general of the book, was I think in the first chapter or the second chapter, it's talked, when they're presenting the information to her about, the murder and trying to get her to come to the school and investigate, they basically said, this body's cut directly in half from end to end or something. Just described, the scene, and I was man, that's brutal, but the author does a good job of just describing things in general. There was a quote earlier in the book when the books were whispering or whatever, and I wrote it down. It said, "Books whispering like a scandalized congregation of origami Presbyterians." Just that kind of stuff, where the bulb died again with a sound like a fly smacking into a set of Venetian blinds. Just very descriptive all throughout, but especially with the magic, you could really, with the healing stuff, you could really see the scene, and that was cool. The author did a good job of being descriptive. There just wasn't enough of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, the author did do a really good job being descriptive. They made you feel like you were in the book when things like that were happening. So the question that Barbara was laughing at before that I snuck in here is, do you think Ivy is annoying, and why do you hate her? Because I really didn't like the main character, and so I put that in there.
How did you really feel, Michael, about Ivy?
I think that was pretty clear how I feel about Ivy. So let's see. It is a book about Ivy's relationship with herself, her sister, and her love interest, Rahul. Magic is just the setting of the book. I think we already answered this question, which is that we all wish there was more magic.
You literally just read that's my note for myself.
Yeah.
You stole the notes.
I liked Rahul, though.
Rahul?
Yeah, I did too.
And let's move on. There was actually another question somebody wrote about.
No, I want to talk about this. Hold on, give me a second. So,
all right.
All the way up until almost the end of the book, I preferred Tabitha over Ivy, even though I felt like Tabitha was kind of obviously hiding stuff and doing it on purpose at one point. I liked how maybe even three-dimensional that Tabitha is and stuff like that, up until like she showed her crazy. And that's where it flipped for me, because for once I was like, you know what, Ivy isn't a bad person. She actually genuinely cared. Like, she was worried about Courtney. She genuinely cared about Courtney and was worried about her. And, like, someone needs to, like, does she need to talk to someone because of what she went through? And another thing is, she, as much as her and her sister had this issue, like, she still really wanted that relationship with her sister to the point where she obviously lied to the school officials and said, it was an accident. She was trying to, I don't know, teleport or something like that, and it didn't end up right, and that's why she split up in half. She hid the fact that her sister did this illegally twice, did two things illegally twice, just to save face and save her sister, so her sister wouldn't be, like, condoned and probably gone to, I don't know, magical jail if that was a thing in her world.
Azkaban.
Her sister didn't even care about the relationship, though. Like, it was all fake. Yeah. And so, like, it really made me mad that she didn't do the right thing and turn her in after all of that, especially with the abortion thing. Just, like, I mean, obviously, like, the murder thing needed to be turned in, too, but the murder thing was more of an accident. The other was totally intentional. And like, what relationship are you trying to salvage? Like, she's lying to you. She's lied to you this whole book. Like, why are you? I don't know. I did not like that.
I really liked Tabitha's character up until the end, and I was just thinking about this as Barbara was talking, and the way that the author wrote this relationship was actually really, really cool, because you get introduced to Tabitha and you start to like her in the same way that Ivy, the main character, is starting to like let her walls down and trust her, and like then the reader of the book is like, oh, she seems pretty nice. Wow, she's being really nice. Like, you start to like Tabitha more and more, and then you find out it was always big deception at the end, and that as a reader, that stung a little bit. I think find out that all these happy moments, they were like sisterly moments they were having were all fake. And so the author did a really good job at writing that pivotal moment when the rug gets ripped out from under Ivy's feet. I think at least like I felt that a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So,
I was talking to Lauren. Like, I love books with like the sister characters and stuff like that. But it's hard to find one where they genuinely like each other at the end of the book, or like maybe they have a broken relationship in the beginning and then they fix it towards the end. Like, this one, I was really hoping for that, and I knew it wasn't going to happen. And it didn't. Obviously, it didn't. Like, and the author made me feel bad for Ivy in that sense, where she genuinely wanted a relationship with her sister. Like, she was trying, and her sister pretty much slapped it in her face. Like, I feel like her sister knew and used that against her, knew that she would maybe do that for her and let her get off and hopefully not solve the quote-unquote the crime and stuff like that. So
yeah, she totally knew, and she was manipulative. I don't know. Michael's whole, do you think Ivy's annoying and why do you hate her question, like, I thought she was a little bit annoying in the sense that it was a little bit redundant, her whining. I get where people are coming from when they complain about that. But at the same time, I liked Ivy's character as far as just, like, I feel like it was a good representation of how it would feel to be in that situation. And then also just I had so much, like, sympathy for her because of not only just growing up with this sister that's, like, can do all of these cool things and you can't do any of them, and, like, just feeling like you're always chasing that, but then also, like, her getting her hopes up that, like, she's finally going to have a sister again, and then just, like Michael said, pulled the rug out, like, at the end, and then she still stands up for her, and it just shows how kind of sick and codependent the relationship kind of is, and it just makes you feel bad for her.
But let's talk about how Ivy catfished Rahul.
Yeah.
Because that happened. Like, she... So for description, Rahul is another professor of physical magic at the academy, and Ivy lets him believe that she is also magic and has these abilities.
She doesn't...
And then starts a relationship with this guy.
Well, she doesn't... She never said she wasn't. It was a white lie, essentially. She never said, hey, by the way, I'm just a normal person who can't do magic.
No, she let him believe that she was.
She never outright told him that she was.
The only lie she did tell him was where she went to school.
Right.
She did. So there he goes. So that's a fair assumption for him to assume that she's magic if she's telling him that she went to a magical school.
Yeah. I mean, she clearly wanted him to believe she was magic. And then, I really liked Raul. Like, I thought he was a good guy. And then that was another thing I was disappointed with because she never gets to open the door. Not the outfit, but Ivy at the end. Like, it's like, oh, I'm going over there to his place to basically be honest and, like, see where it takes me. And, like, she never gets, like, we never...
after she trashed the relationship, right? By being dishonest and breaking Rahul's heart.
You know what? He might be able to see past it in her circumstance of understanding that she...
Yeah, maybe.
She obviously... So this book is literally about how much she hates herself, who she is, essentially. Like, she's not happy with who she is. And going to this school and seeing all these things, and she literally says at one point, like, I just, like, there's two parts of her. One is, like, her real her, and the other part she envisions what she could have been had she been the one who got the magic, and what her life would have been if she was magical. And she hates that she's not. And she thinks that she could have been so much better had she had this magic, if she had this potential to do all this stuff. And essentially it boils down to that she's not happy with who she is and where she's at in life, and that's unfortunate.
And so that was actually my favorite part of the ending, was that she's finally, like, and as Lauren said, they leave a lot of cliffhangers. Like, the book literally ends with her with some pho and a bottle of wine sitting on Rahul's porch, like, waiting for him to come home, hoping that she can clear this up. The best part of the ending was that she's finally okay with herself, or at least she's in a direction, or moving in a direction where, like, she's starting to love herself for who she actually is, or at least accept herself for who she really is. And I liked that. I liked that, the book ended, like, she saved face with Tabitha, but she also kind of implied, like, but that's it. Like, this is the last thing I'm going to do for you. Like, she wasn't like, let's be sister friends.
I don't think you can be friends.
Like, I think she was like, hey, look, I'm going to save your ass, but then that's it. And, I think that the moment when Rahul cut things off with her was an eye-opening moment for Ivy, too, because, like, when he finds out that she's not magic, and, like, I think she immediately thinks, like, oh, no, like, he's going to find out I can't do magic, and that's why he's going to hate me. Yeah. And in that moment, he finds that out, and he doesn't hate her for that. Like, he makes it crystal clear. It's like, he's like, it doesn't bother me that you can't do magic, and he makes her leave, or he asks her to leave, and ends the relationship because she lied. About in his mind, about a core thing about herself, and that's why he was upset. And I think that was eye-opening for the character too, when she was, like, expecting him to despise her, like, oh, you can't do magic, get out of here, you peasant. And he was like, I don't care about that, but you lied.
But I feel like he's a good enough guy that, like, once he cooled down, Like, they were going to enjoy that pho. And it was going to be fine. And, like, she was going to, I don't know, that's my thought. But then, like, we never get to know because that's how the book is.
Nope, you never get to find out.
What about the other characters? And
the other side characters? Or the secondary characters?
Yeah, so that leads to the other thing that was really just like what the WTF moment, like, she introduced this whole chosen one plot point and all that stuff, and it just kind of felt like, pretty much to me, it seemed like a poke at all the books, like Harry Potter essentially, who has a chosen one, and like is just making fun of the fact that all these magical books always have, for it to be magical, has to have someone who needs to aspire to great things, and they're going to be the one who saves the universe, and blah 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 blah. And there, to me, it didn't seem like there was any point for that, like, whatsoever, that part of the plot point, because it literally went nowhere, except for the fact that you're led to believe that it's Dylan.
Dylan thinks he's the chosen one.
No, he thinks he is, but obviously it's very apparent for like chapter 3 onwards that it's not Dylan, but it's Alexandria, his half-sister, who's the one who can do all this.
That? Like, I didn't.
That's what I'm saying. I have no idea.
There's no point. You could cut out that entire, like, still have those characters, but cut out the whole chosen one thing, and the book is the same. Like,
yeah, because I didn't go anywhere with that.
You know, you could have easily just like not called it the chosen one, and had Alexandria just realize, like, you know, holy hell, I'm really powerful, and I can do all this theoretical stuff, and it would have been just as effective.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she threw in the chosen, like, I mean, that's a fantasy trope. It's not just fantasy.
But I think it's making fun of the fantasy trope.
Do you think it was mocking?
Yes, I think it
was
mocking
the chosen one.
I personally, that's how I took it. I was like, there's no other that I can tell the reason for that. I mean, is it a red herring so you believe that Alexandria, you know, was the one who murdered it, but you didn't need all the chosen one stuff? Like, that just kind of was maybe to describe her character. I don't know, but
she could have been a suspect without being the chosen one or whatever. Yeah, that was kind of dumb.
I love to hate Alexandria.
She was presented as a suspect before we even knew she had all that power.
Right.
Yeah.
Alexandria was cool. Her Alexandria and her goon squad of mean girls.
What's the mean girl? The
Regina George.
Regina George.
She was such a Regina, like, totally to a T. It was like, I totally got Mean Girl vibes from it. It was like Regina with magical powers. It was amazing. So I really liked her character, and I liked that at the end of the day, like, she was your stereotypical normal teenager who hated what she looked like and wished she was popular, and so what did she do? She magicked herself to be who she wanted to be, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Her character was interesting, and the Mean Girls thing was also interesting. I agree with both of you that the chosen one thing could have just been dropped in it.
Yeah, that part was just, there was no reason for that. At least I didn't see one.
Guys, our conversation is covering a lot of these questions, which is great. We kind of talked about this, and I think the answer is going to be no from both of you, but did you like how the book ended?
No.
No.
And also no.
It's not, like, yeah, I actually enjoy the part where we don't know whether her and Raoul got back together or not. I think that's kind of up to the reader to decide, you know. What I didn't like was just, she was brought into this case for a murder. Like, what the effing hell is she going to tell the headmistress that it was just an accident? Like, obviously, the headmistress is not that stupid. She knows. That's why she hired her for a reason. She knows something happened.
But on the flip side, that part doesn't really matter because Ivy's just a PI, and as far as the government is concerned, the magical government, the case is closed.
Let's talk about PI. Ivy is a shitty PI. I'm sorry. She's awful. Like, it's blatantly apparent what is going on. She was just like, I'm so good at reading people. Like, I am the best, y'all. Like, I'm so good at it. And don't get me wrong, she's great at reading people. That's as far as her PI-ness goes to me.
So to clarify, if you're not as good at deduction as Barbara, you're stupid.
No, that's not. That's
Lauren,
not what I'm saying.
I hope you know that Barbara just called both of us stupid.
No, I'm just saying, I didn't think she was that great of a PI. Like, things literally fell into her lap for her to figure it out. How did she find out about the two, like, that Cordy, well, not even that, she knew Cordy was pregnant, but that there was a chick that was pregnant, and that's why there was a, like, Alexandria maybe was the reason why she killed herself because her phone accidentally fell when she ran into Raoul, and she stuck her hand underneath the lockers and found the little notes there. That's the only reason why she knew other stuff was going on. Like, she, like, fell into stuff. It wasn't like she was purposely finding these clues. She found the diary. How? Because her drunk ass, by the way, alcoholic, stumbled into this thing. It's just like, it seemed she was a very lucky person. It had nothing to do with her skill. It was just very fortunate. So that's not a good PI to me. And I don't even know what I was talking about. Oh, the ending. No, did we like the... What was the question?
That was the question. Did you like how it ending? Why or why not?
I didn't like... Yeah, he totally distracted me. I didn't like the she... Like, I want to know what the hell she's going to say to the headmistress. Like... Obviously, she's not going to tattle on her sister. Like, that was very apparent that she just told her to, like, F off and, like, leave, and now I'm not going to tell. But, like, what do you tell her? Like, yes, I concluded in my research that was what it was. Like,
yeah, that's what you say. You go in there and you say,
how do you not feel shitty about that?
In my professional opinion.
It's not a professional opinion. You're lying to someone who paid you for a service. You shouldn't be like that.
In my professional opinion, the police were right. They came to the correct conclusion. But they were
right, and the headmistress knows she's not dumb. That's what I didn't like. I didn't like that part of the ending. I didn't like how we never found out what, like, is Courtney going to get help? What about Alexandria? Because she even mentioned, she's like, oh, like, it would have been nice had you had someone like Tabitha to, like, help guide you with your powers and stuff like that, because you guys are pretty much the same. Two peas in a pod. You guys don't care about anyone. You're really, into each... what is the word? Selfish. You're really selfish and all this stuff.
I think Lauren described why the ending was bad perfectly earlier, and a little bit earlier in the podcast, maybe even the first half of the podcast, when she said, like, there is no sequel. And I think that's a perfect way to describe it. The book ended in a way where you're like, okay, like, this is the first book in a series, and it's going to pick up. And it left those threads hanging like you would expect at the end of a book that's going to be a series. And in this case, the author has confirmed it's not going to be a series, and that's just the end. And so I think that's why none of us liked the ending, is because it felt like it just didn't finish things, and it left things open for another book, but there's not going to be one. So
it was just unethical. Like, the whole, I don't know. I just feel like there were too many. Like, I think that in the interest of being inclusive with the characters and, like, also kind of experimenting with some of the touchy subjects like abortion and things, I think that was a good thing for the author to do, but at the same time, I feel like it was not, the execution of it was not effective to the extent that, like, if you're going to throw some of those huge things out there, you need to, in my personal opinion, being in the mental health field, for your readers' sake, you need to wrap them up a little bit better than they did, because, I mean, the whole sister getting away with basically doing a terrible, traumatic abortion thing was more maddening to me than the sister getting away with, like, the whole killing of the girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
And like Barbara said, I don't really think Ivy was that good of a PI, which is the next question, I think.
So why were you giving me stress for that? Like, you were just, like, egging me on.
I was just dragging that answer out, you know?
You were like, actually, she's great. She doesn't have to tell them.
Because when you play devil's advocate, you get to have you get a nice conversation. Lauren, what do you think? Was she a good PI? Was she a bad PI?
It sounded like she was decent for, like, her normal job, like her normal gig. Like, it sounded like she was pretty sought after, and she didn't need, like, it sounded like she had a name for herself, at least in, like, the, cheating spouse department and, like, that sort of smaller scale stuff. So I don't think she was a bad PI in the whole blanket term. I think that the case that she was brought on for, she was almost set up for failure, because that's you're going into an environment where you're already going to be vulnerable and uncomfortable, because your sister, who's your, like, idol, like, works there, and like, you're just, I don't know. I feel like the situation that she put herself in set her up to be not good at her job, because she was so distracted by all of the other stuff, like the magic and the fact that, she wants to fit in, and she like, I don't know. I feel like there's too many distractions, and like she really shouldn't have probably taken on that case just for an ethical standpoint.
Yeah,
because
that's what I was gonna say too. Ethically, I don't feel like she should have taken on, if even her sister was a remote person of interest, like, you should pull yourself out
Conflict
right then
of
and there.
interest.
Like,
Oh,
conflict
yes.
of interest.
I feel like she could have been a great PI, but I feel like the situation that she signed up for basically sealed the fact that like she was not going to be good at that particular job just because of all of her relationships and all of the stuff that was intertwined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Came along with it.
If she would have like gone to a totally unrelated school that she didn't know anybody at to solve a murder, I think she might have done okay. But
Right. Did we figure out why the headmistress wanted her? Or was that Tabitha pretty much knowing that her sister wouldn't be able to either A, solve the case because she was...
Oh, no, I think that was just random.
That was random?
I think, like Lauren mentioned, like, she's a private eye that had made a name for herself, and I'm guessing, like anybody else would in modern times, the headmistress did a quick Google search.
No, but like
her.
she literally even said, like, I've never done a murder case. Like, why would you want to pick someone who's inexperienced for something like that? Like, that
I don't think you
make
could find a
sense to me.
private eye that would have done murder, because it's generally not something that a private investigator investigates.
Oh, okay. So...
I don't know if it was just a total accident or if she knew. I mean, she obviously had to know that her sister, that they were related. And so, like...
Well, didn't she say that she was recommended by Tabitha? I'm pretty sure she did.
I don't
No,
remember.
No, she didn't, because Tabitha made a comment at one point that she had forgotten that she even worked in the area.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Tabitha was lying. I'm pretty sure Tabitha played this whole thing. Like, this whole thing was planned by her.
So if that happened and she recommended her, we don't know. I don't think that was ever stated in the book one way or the other.
Because, like, Tabitha pretty much planted everything so it would look like... So Alexandria would take the fall for it, is essentially what happened. Like, she planted all these things so Alexandria would take the fall and she would get off.
Yeah. That's what it seemed like, for sure.
No, she
Oh, no, she did that. Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. I thought maybe she was even like, oh, hey, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, my sister is a private investigator. Why don't you, get her?
And she might have. We'll never know, because I don't think they actually went over that.
Yeah,
if someone's read the book, let me know. I don't recall that. No.
So another question that Barbara had on here was, a similar ethical vein, was about the school nurse. What did we think of that character?
No, that wasn't me. That was Lauren.
That was Lauren's question.
Mm-hmm.
That was Lauren's question, and I'll answer it then. Well, I liked the school nurse's character, really, like, right up until the end. She was an interesting character. She seemed way overqualified to be working as a school nurse, so I kind of wanted to know more about that. Like, did she screw up at a previous career?
She was retired. She was, like, in her 80s.
No, that's right. She's older. I forgot about that.
Her granddaughter went to that school, and so she's like, well, it's one of those people who probably just loves what she does and wants to be busy. She, like, had retired, like, 3 times as a healer and just decided, like, I want to do something. Yeah. So school nurse is probably less taxing on the body or...
So I liked her. Mrs. Webb was a badass. She was clearly talented at what she did. What I didn't like about her is when it got to the end and the whole thing with Courtney and the abortion and all that came out, and Mrs. Webb just kind of was like okay with brushing that under the rug. And
yeah, she totally dropped the ball ethically. Yeah. Like as a health practitioner, whether it's mental health, physical health, whatever. Like, I don't know if a magical will. Right, you take it out. Like, you do no harm, and, like, I mean, maybe the magical world doesn't believe in that, I don't know, but I was I really liked Mrs. Webb throughout the whole thing, and then when she just kind of let it go, whatever, like, I guess it is what it is with the whole abortion thing. I was like, that goes against all kinds of, like, ethical standards and also just, like, moral... Like, people who are in the healing profession, like, that just doesn't jive with that. So I quit liking her at the end after that.
Did she? So I know in the beginning she was like, oh, whatever, brush it aside. And then she learned that Courtney got the abortion without the sedative. And that she changed her tune just a little. After that, she seemed actually genuinely concerned at that point, maybe not as concerned as maybe she should be, and she also didn't press Ivy or Courtney, and maybe and this is one of those things that maybe if we had a future book she would have type thing, because she seemed like she obviously didn't believe either of them, that they didn't know who performed it. But she seemed a little bit more concerned, but I didn't think it was as, like, if that was me type thing, I would have been like, well, what the hell? Like, we need to figure this out. Like, we need to get you some help. Like, what can I do to help you in this situation type thing? She brushed off it in the beginning, right? And then she found out that she didn't have the sedative, and that's when she kind of changed.
That's when she kind of got mad about it.
But like you said, like, I loved her character up until that point. I was just like, man, come on, none of these adults seem to really care about these teenagers. Well, and it's kind of sad.
Like you said, she didn't press it. Like, that would be like if I have my kid that says, like, she didn't eat the cookie, but she has cookie crumbs on her face. And I'm like, well, are you sure you didn't eat the cookie? And she's like, yeah. And even though there's, like, evidence that says that she ate the cookie, I'm just like, okay. And we just move on. Like,
right.
Like, you could have pressed the issue a little bit more, especially with how big of a deal it was to try and figure out, like, what actually happened. But she's just, like, satisfied with, well, all right, like, we're just going to accept that BS answer that you know is BS.
And Lauren, I really liked the last question that I'm assuming is Lauren's question. Lauren, I really liked the last question, which is, if you were in Ivy's position, would you have pretended to be magic to live out your dream, or would you have been honest with everyone? And it's a good question, and it's a complicated question, because I think that pretending to be magic helped her in her investigation, because I think people at the school were more open with her when they thought she was like them, as most people are when they think that they're like them. Whereas I disagree though with Rahul, which we already kind of talked about. So I think if she was just pretending for the sake of the investigation, I mean, that happens all the time in investigations in the private world and the public world.
She's a bad PI. You can't be fraternizing with someone who potentially could have murdered this lady. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
True.
First off, you have a sister who could be a potential person who murdered her, and then you have this teacher who you just fall in love with. It's like, dude, come on. That's just 101. You don't do that kind of stuff. You don't date the person and be sisters with the other one. Be like, okay, I'm going to have to pull myself out here, and then be like, hey, dude, I want to date you. I like you. There you go. Problem solved.
Put it this way, Barbara. If you got a letter for Hogwarts, but found out that you were a squib and weren't magical, and you only got to spend, like, 1 week at Hogwarts, would you pretend like you were magical for the sake of experiencing all the stuff, or would you tell everybody you're a squib?
No, I would be true with my... I don't know. I feel like that's kind of hard. Like, am I trying to make friends here? Because if I'm not trying to make friends, then I'm just going to be who I am, because that's who I am. Like it or not, I guess. But, like, if I'm trying to, like, get some friends, and trust me, it's hard. Like, would I maybe fib? You know, probably. Like, yeah, like, oh, yeah, girl, I can do magic too. Woo!
So I just think in this case, the lie itself is not unethical, because it's part of the investigation to pretend to be someone else. But I think that because of the other circumstances, like the fact that she started having a relationship with this guy, and the fact that her sister was there, like, I mean, ethically, all in all, you know, Ivy took the book of ethics and lit it on fire. But
right.
I don't think that lying about being magic to get these other magic people to let their guard down and tell her stuff was bad as a private investigation.
I don't think so. I mean, you want them to trust you. Would they trust someone who wasn't magical? Probably not. So I think that was okay for her to do for her investigation. But once she started getting personal, that's when you pull back and say, hey, dude, by the way, I'm investigating your ass, but I'm also not magical. I want to start a relationship with you. I want to start it on the right foot. I'm sorry that I led you to believe that I was. You know, she should have said all this during their dinner date, like their first dinner date. Like, hey, I didn't tell you this earlier because I was still investigating you, but I wanted you to know that I'm not, you know, I don't do magic. I'm not a magical person. Is that okay? Are you still cool with that? And if not, I completely understand. She should have been honest then and there and not had him, you know, believe otherwise. But she shouldn't have put herself in that position in the first place. Like, you don't date someone who could potentially be someone who murdered this person. Like, you are investigating a murder. You shouldn't be fraternizing with anybody.
She drank a lot of alcohol, Barbara. She didn't really know.
I feel like that this is kind of goes back to my point from earlier about the fact that she never should have taken the job to begin with, because I feel like her pretending to be magic, like the way that she made herself feel better about it was to say it's because of my investigation and it's going to let people's guards down, and that's how she's going to feel okay about the decision. But I feel like 98% of her was doing it because she had always wanted to know what it felt like to be a part of the magical community and to like experience those experiences. And so I feel like, yeah, she was able to justify it because she was doing the investigation, but she was really just living out a childhood dream that she never got to experience. And again, like, she ethically shouldn't have ever even taken the job because, like, she couldn't, with her situation, she was never set up to be good at the actual job. Like, I think that it was all in the name of, what does it feel like to be magic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's a very selfish person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So concluding that question, let's move on to the individual scores. I'm going to let Lauren start since this was her book.
I gave it a 7.5. It might have been an 8 if it weren't for the ending. There were a lot of like issues that I had with it in general, but the fact that the author made me read it in a day and a half because of the pacing and the descriptiveness and just the like the way that it was written, I feel like it deserves a higher score because I feel like, I don't know. I'm also like super critical of my books, and I feel bad that I've never rated one over like a 6, so.
This is literally your highest scored book.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
And my lowest scored book. I gave it a 6 for the same reasons that Lauren gave it a higher score. Like, that's the only reason it deserved a 6, because the way that the author wrote the imagery and things like that, and the magic, and there are a lot of the things that I talked about in the episode that were positives for the reason that it got a 6 instead of a lower score. But yeah, that was my score. 6 out of 10. Barbara?
I was, once again, the middle person, and I gave it 6.75. I'm sorry for the 0.75.
Just so damn specific. 6.75.
It murders my whole soul every time I do this to him.
It does.
I just can't decide because it's better than 6.5, but it's not quite the 7, and so it's 6.75. So
our group score was a 6.75.
I told you I'm always the middle number. Literally, I'm always the middle number.
It's true, actually. We did. We dug into this, and traditionally, I have the highest rating. Lauren has the lowest rating, and Barbara's rating is literally the average of our two ratings.
I'm in the middle.
And this book, we were like, oh, we're gonna break that because Lauren picked high and I picked low, and Barbara still picked.
I'm one thing, and I'm a very consistent person. I'm just a very neutral, just in the average, not happy or sad, just there. I'm just there. That's how I feel about the book. It was good. I liked it, but there was a lot of things I also didn't like, but a lot of things that I did like, and those things that I liked were awesome, amazing. The whole magic is the way that she created this. I want more. And like Lauren said, like, I read this book quickly because I was always like, well, maybe this is when I'm going to find out more magic, or maybe it's this. And then she had those scenes where I could not put the book down because it would be like, and then he exploded. And I was like, oh, what the hell? He exploded. Well, I have to figure out why he exploded. Let me keep reading. And so it was not boring. You know, obviously I got through it. I didn't have any like moments where Michael did when he was just like, oh, this is trudging along. I didn't think so. It was quick. And maybe that's why she kept it short. Maybe it's a good thing that it's a short book. Because I think maybe if it was longer, it wouldn't have been so, like, I didn't maybe want to read it so often, or the pacing would have been off. So that's why I gave it a score.
And thus concludes our episode on Magic for Liars. Thank you so much for listening. We are Badass Literature Society. Hopefully you liked it. Let us know one way or the other. If you've got a book recommendation, please let us know either on Instagram or Twitter. Follow us on our socials. Handle is still at BadassLitPod.
And guys, if you like the episodes, please, 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 please give us a review on iTunes. It would mean the world to us when you do review it, because it puts us on like the, hey, check this podcast out part of the podcast when you're searching for things. So if you can review us, we would really appreciate it.
Yes, we would.
We might get a shout out, even though I suck at shout outs. Hey, who knows?
And on one final note, I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
Lauren.
And we are Badass Literature Society.
Thanks for listening.
See you guys next month.
Bye.